My dad banned me from the Christmas party because my younger brother was bringing his successful girlfriend. 3 months later, my brother applied for a job and HR introduced me as the CEO. He was stunned. Then my parents showed up at my house, but I made a call. Can you even begin to imagine dedicating your entire life to building something from nothing, pouring every ounce of your being into it, only to have your own parents ban you from Christmas, from your home, just to impress your brother's new girlfriend? Well, strap in, because 3 months later, karma served a dish so cold, so perfectly poetic, it landed right on my desk, and it taught me the true meaning of standing up for myself. My name is Rebecca Mitchell, and at 32, I'm the CEO of Techision Solutions, a tech startup that's grown into a mid-sized company with over 200 employees. But my journey to success wasn't some charmed path paved with family support. Quite the opposite. Growing up in Pittsburgh, I was always the odd one out. My parents, Walter and Diana, made it abundantly clear that my younger brother, Marcus, was the golden child. 3 years my junior, Marcus got everything: the newest toys, the best opportunities, and most importantly, their unwavering attention and praise. From an early age, I learned to be self-sufficient. While my parents cheered at every one of Marcus's Little League games and school plays, they rarely showed up for my academic competitions or piano recitals. "We're busy with Marcus's event" became the most common phrase I heard. When it was time for college, the disparity was even more stark. "We've been saving for Marcus's education since he was born," my father explained when I asked about financial help. "He's going to be a doctor or a lawyer someday. You've always been independent, Rebecca. You'll figure something out." And figure it out I did. I worked 3 part-time jobs while maintaining a full course load at State University. Sleep became a luxury. But I graduated with honors, a degree in computer science and business administration in hand. Meanwhile, Marcus partied his way through freshman year at an expensive private university, promptly failed out, and then convinced our parents to fund his gap year that mysteriously stretched into 3 years of finding himself, while traveling through Europe and Asia on their dime. After college, I landed an entry-level position at a small tech firm. The pay was minimal, but the experience was invaluable. I lived in a tiny studio, worked 60-hour weeks, pouring every spare minute into developing my skills and building side projects. While Marcus posted exotic vacation photos, I was coding until 3 a.m., determined to create something meaningful. My breakthrough came 5 years ago. I developed a revolutionary AI-powered customer relationship management system. I pitched my idea to countless investors, faced rejection after rejection, but finally secured enough funding to launch Techision Solutions. The first 2 years were brutal. I worked around the clock, poured everything I had into making the company succeed. There were moments I thought we wouldn't make it, when funding was low and the product wasn't quite there. But I persisted. By year 3, our software had gained traction. Major companies started adopting our platform, and the revenue flowed in. We expanded, moved into a proper office, and I finally started paying myself a reasonable salary. This year, Techision Solutions became a major player in the tech industry, valued at over $200 million. Throughout this journey, my communication with my family dwindled to occasional holiday phone calls. My parents never asked about my company. When I tried to share my successes, they'd quickly change the subject to Marcus's latest endeavor, which inevitably had failed by the time they told me about it. Marcus eventually returned to the US and, with our parents' connections, landed a job at a marketing firm. He did the bare minimum, but somehow always received praise from our parents. "Marcus is really finding his way in the corporate world," my mother would say, completely ignoring that I was running my own wildly successful company. It was December, 3 weeks before Christmas, when everything came to a head. I was sitting in my corner office, overlooking the Seattle skyline, reviewing year-end reports, when my phone rang. It was my mother. An unusual occurrence on a Tuesday afternoon. "Rebecca, dear," she said in that overly sweet voice she only used when she wanted something. "I'm calling about Christmas this year." I was surprised. In recent years, I'd received a text message invitation at most, usually just days before. A phone call 3 weeks in advance was unprecedented. "We're having everyone over on Christmas Eve," she continued. "It would be lovely if you could join us." A warmth spread through my chest. Despite everything, I still craved my family's acceptance. Maybe things were changing. "That sounds nice, Mom," I replied, trying to keep the hope out of my voice. "I think I can make it." "Wonderful," she chirped. "Oh, and Marcus is bringing his new girlfriend, Kimberly Grant. She works at Hamilton and Partners, that prestigious consulting firm. Her father is a partner there." And there it was. The real reason for the call. "She's just brilliant," my mother continued, oblivious to my silence. "Harvard Business School, fast track to junior partner. Marcus met her at a charity gala. Everyone is just so impressed with her. Your father tells everyone his son is dating a Harvard graduate. Can you imagine the Mitchell family moving up in the world?" I took a deep breath. "Mom, did I tell you that Tekashin was featured in Forbes last month? We're expanding to Europe next year, and oh, that's nice, dear," she interrupted. "Anyway, Kimberly comes from a really good family. Her mother is on the board of the symphony orchestra, and they have a summer home in the Hamptons. Marcus says they might go there for New Year's. Isn't that exciting?" I bit my tongue. "Very exciting. Listen, Mom, I need to get back to work. I have a meeting in 5 minutes. "Of course, dear. We'll see you at Christmas. Wear something nice, will you? None of those business suits. Kimberly is very fashion-forward." After we hung up, I stared at my phone. I shouldn't have been surprised by my mother's behavior, but somehow it still stung. I shook it off, returning to work, trying not to think about the upcoming holiday. A week before Christmas, I was finalizing my travel plans when my phone rang again. This time, it was my father. He rarely called me, so I answered immediately, concerned. "Rebecca," he said, gruffly, without a greeting. "Dad, is everything okay?" "I'm calling about Christmas," he said. "Your mother and I have been talking, and we think it might be best if you don't come this year." I sat in stunned silence, my hand gripping the phone. "Marcus's girlfriend comes from a good family," he continued, his voice firm. "We don't want anything to complicate things." "Complicate things?" I repeated, my voice barely audible. "What does that mean?" "You know what I mean, Rebecca. Kimberly comes from money, real success. Her family has connections. We need to show her that our family is respectable." "And I'm not respectable?" The words came out sharper than I intended. "Don't twist my words," he snapped. "Your brother has a chance at a good future here. The last thing we need is you coming in with your alternative lifestyle." "My alternative lifestyle?" I was genuinely confused. "Dad, I'm a CEO of a technology company." "What are you talking about?" "All that independent woman stuff. The career obsession. The way you always have to one-up your brother with your so-called success." So-called success. The words hit me like a physical blow. "You've always been difficult, Rebecca," he continued when I didn't respond. "Always had to do things your own way, never considering how it affects the family. Just this once, can you think about someone other than yourself? Think about your brother's future." I sat there, phone pressed to my ear, as my father dismantled any illusion I had about my place in the family. I wasn't being banned from Christmas because of anything I had done. I was being banned because of who I was, successful, independent, and unwilling to pretend I was less than I was. "I understand," I finally said, my voice steady despite the tears threatening to spill. "Enjoy your Christmas." "Good," he replied, sounding relieved that I hadn't argued. "Your mother will call you after the holidays." After hanging up, I sat motionless at my desk, staring out at the Seattle skyline as the winter sun set early, casting long shadows across the city. I had built this company, this career, this life, all on my own, without their help or support. And still, it wasn't enough to make me worthy of a place at their Christmas table. For the first time in years, I allowed myself to cry over my family's rejection. Not quiet tears, but deep, gut-wrenching sobs that left me gasping for breath. I cried for the little girl who had never been enough, for the teenager who had worked herself to exhaustion trying to earn approval that would never come, and for the woman who still, despite everything, yearned for her parents' acceptance. When the tears finally stopped, I wiped my face, straightened my shoulders, and returned to my work. If I wasn't welcome at my parents' house for Christmas, I would create my own holiday on my own terms. Christmas morning dawned cold and clear in Seattle. From my penthouse apartment, I could see the Space Needle illuminated with festive lights. I had decorated half-heartedly, a small tree, a few ornaments. It was my first Christmas completely alone, and the silence was deafening. My phone pinged with a message from Tiffany, my executive assistant. "Merry Christmas, Rebecca. Remember, my mom's famous eggnog is waiting for you if you change your mind about coming over." Tiffany had been horrified when I mentioned I'd be spending Christmas alone and had immediately invited me. I'd politely declined, not wanting to intrude. Before I could respond, another message came through. This one from Abigail, my best friend since college. "Merry Christmas, Becca. James and the kids are asking when Auntie Rebecca is arriving. The ham is in the oven and there's a glass of wine with your name on it. Please tell me you're not spending today alone in that sterile apartment of yours." I smiled despite myself. Abigail knew me too well. We had met during freshman orientation and had been inseparable ever since. She had witnessed firsthand my struggles with my family and had opened her own family to me without hesitation. I stared at my phone for a long moment before making a decision. I texted Abigail back, "Give me an hour. I'll bring dessert." I quickly showered and dressed, then stopped at the only open bakery to pick up a chocolate cake. As I pulled into Abigail's suburban driveway, the front door flew open and her 7-year-old twins, Emma and Ethan, raced out to greet me, still in their Christmas pajamas. "Auntie Rebecca, you came," Emma squealed. "We thought you weren't coming," Ethan added, taking the cake box. "Mom said you were working." "I finished early," I lied, following them inside. Abigail's home was the opposite of my minimalist apartment. Every surface was decorated with Christmas cheer. The air smelled of cinnamon and roasting ham, and Christmas music played softly. Abigail emerged from the kitchen. "You came," she said, her voice warm with relief. She embraced me tightly. "I'm so glad." Her husband, James, appeared behind her, their 2-year-old daughter, Lily, on his hip. "About time you showed up, Rebecca. Abigail's been checking her phone every 5 minutes." I was enveloped in the warmth of Abigail's family. We ate a delicious meal, opened presents. Abigail always had gifts for me, played board games with the children, and talked and laughed by the fire. Not once did anyone ask about my work or my achievements or compare me to someone else. I was simply Rebecca, a loved and welcomed member of their celebration. As the evening wore on, I helped Abigail clean up the kitchen. "Thank you for today," I said quietly. I needed this more than I realized. Abigail squeezed my shoulder. "Your family, Becca. You always have a place here." Family, the word both warmed and wounded me. When I returned to my apartment that night, my phone had a new message. It was from Marcus, and it contained a photo of my parents' Christmas celebration. There they were, my parents, Marcus, and a beautiful woman who must have been Kimberly, all smiling in front of the Christmas tree I remembered from childhood, the same ornaments, the same star on top. The message read, "Merry Christmas. Wish you could have been here, but Kimberly's family joined us too, and it was a tight squeeze. Maybe next year." A tight squeeze. The house I grew up in had 5 bedrooms and a spacious living and dining room. It was never about space. I stared at the photo for a long time, noting how proud my father looked with his arm around Marcus, how my mother beamed at Kimberly. They were a picture-perfect family, and there was no place for me in the frame. Something shifted inside me at that moment. A door closed, and in its place, a window opened. If my family couldn't see my worth, I would stop seeking their validation. I would pour all my energy into the one thing that had never failed me, my work. The week between Christmas and New Year's, I worked longer hours than ever. I refined our 5-year expansion plan, initiated talks with potential European partners, and developed a new marketing strategy. My team was on holiday, so the office was quiet, allowing me to work without interruption. Tiffany returned to work in early January and was shocked to find my office completely reorganized. "Did you work through the entire holiday?" she asked, concerned. "I had a breakthrough," I replied, not looking up from my computer. I think this is going to be our biggest year yet. And it was. In the 3 months that followed, TechVision Solutions secured 2 major contracts with Fortune 500 companies, finalized our European expansion plans, and began developing a new AI product that promised to revolutionize the industry. I channeled all my hurt and rejection into productivity, and the company flourished as a result. I rarely thought about my family during this time. My parents didn't call after Christmas, and I made no effort to reach out. Marcus occasionally sent a text with updates about Kimberly, but I responded with brief, polite messages that revealed nothing about my own life. As March approached, I was fully immersed in preparations for our biggest expansion yet. We were moving to a larger office space in downtown Seattle, hiring dozens of new employees across all departments. TechVision Solutions was no longer a startup, it was becoming a major player in the tech industry, and I was at the helm. Rebecca, do you have a minute? Jasmine Henderson, our HR director, poked her head into my office one afternoon in mid-March. Of course, Jasmine, what's up? Jasmine entered, closing the door behind her. She held a folder in her hands and had an unusual expression on her face, somewhere between amused and concerned. We've received over 300 applications for the senior project manager positions, she began, taking a seat across from me. The hiring team has narrowed it down to about 20 candidates for first-round interviews. That's great, I said, wondering why this required a personal visit rather than an email. Are you finding quality candidates? For the most part, yes, she replied. But there's one application I thought you should see. She placed the folder on my desk and slid it toward me. I opened it and immediately froze. The resume inside belonged to Marcus Mitchell, my brother. I quickly scanned the document, noting the inflated job titles and vague accomplishments he had listed. His current position was executive marketing strategist at a company I knew to be a small local firm where he was, at best, a mid-level marketing associate. Did you know he was applying? Jasmine asked carefully. She was one of the few people at the company who knew details about my family. No, I replied, still staring at the resume. I had no idea. He was quite confident during the phone screening, Jasmine said diplomatically. Actually, he was rather condescending to Alicia in HR, assuming she was just a secretary and asking to speak to someone who actually makes decisions. I winced. That sounded exactly like Marcus. The position requires at least 5 years of project management experience and proficiency in 3 programming languages, Jasmine continued. As you can see, his resume doesn't meet those requirements. But he insisted we consider him for the senior role rather than an entry-level position. I sat back in my chair, mind racing. Marcus had no idea I was the CEO of TechVision Solutions. I had always used my middle name, Victoria, in press releases and public appearances to maintain some privacy, and my brother had never shown any interest in my career. But now, by pure coincidence, or perhaps because our company's rapid growth had put us in the news, he had applied for a job at my company. What do you want to do? Jasmine asked. Obviously, there's a conflict of interest here. I considered my options carefully. I could reject his application outright, which would be justified given his lack of qualifications. I could recuse myself entirely from the process and let the hiring team make their decision without knowing about our connection. Or I could use this as an opportunity to finally show my brother the truth about my life and success. I want you to treat his application like any other, I finally said. If he doesn't meet the basic qualifications, he shouldn't proceed to an interview. Jasmine hesitated. On paper, he's not qualified, she admitted. But he did mention some connections to potential clients that the team thought might be valuable. They put him through to the next round despite his lack of technical qualifications. Connections, always falling upward because of who he knew, not what he could do. When is his interview scheduled? I asked. Tomorrow at 2 p.m. I made a decision. I won't be directly involved in the hiring process. That wouldn't be ethical. But I'd like to observe the interview. Can you arrange for me to sit in anonymously? Perhaps introduce me only as a senior board member. Jasmine nodded. We can do that. The panel won't mention your name or title. After Jasmine left, I sat staring at Marcus's resume, emotions swirling inside me. Part of me felt guilty for what might seem like a setup, but another part, the part that had been rejected and dismissed for years, wanted Marcus to finally see me for who I really was. Not just his overlooked sister, but a successful CEO who had built something significant through hard work and determination. That night, I barely slept. I rehearsed in my mind how I would behave during the interview: professional, detached, fair. I wouldn't let our personal history affect my judgment. But I also wouldn't pretend to be less than I was. For once, Marcus would see me clearly, without our parents' distorted lens. The next day, I dressed with extra care in a tailored navy suit, my hair pulled back in a sleek ponytail. I reviewed Marcus's resume once more and prepared a few technical questions that would challenge him without being unfair. Then I headed to the conference room where the interviews were being conducted, taking a seat at the far end of the table with the other observers. At precisely 2 p.m., Jasmine entered with Marcus. My breath caught in my throat. It had been over a year since I'd seen my brother in person, and he looked older, more polished in his expensive suit. He carried himself with the confidence of someone who had never been told he wasn't good enough. For a moment, I was that little girl again, watching from the sidelines as my parents lavished attention on their golden child. But then I remembered where I was, in the company I had built from nothing, sitting in a position of leadership I had earned through years of hard work. And I straightened my shoulders, ready for whatever came next. The TechVision Solutions headquarters occupied the top 3 floors of a gleaming skyscraper in downtown Seattle. The conference room featured floor-to-ceiling windows with spectacular views of Puget Sound. Modern art adorned the walls. It was a room designed to impress, and I could see from Marcus's expression as he entered that it had achieved its purpose. Jasmine introduced the interview panel: Alicia from HR, whom Marcus had spoken to on the phone, Devin, the technical director, and Sophie, the current senior project manager. Then she gestured to the observer section, where I sat with 2 other executives. "We also have members of our leadership team observing today," Jasmine explained professionally. "They'll be sitting in on several interviews to ensure consistency in our hiring process." Marcus barely glanced at us, his attention focused on the panel. He smiled confidently as he took his seat, straightening his tie in a gesture I recognized from childhood, a habit he displayed when he was trying to impress someone. "Thank you for the opportunity," he began smoothly. "I've been following TechVision's growth, and I'm excited about the possibility of bringing my expertise to your team." I bit back a smile. Marcus had no idea what TechVision did beyond the most general description of tech solutions. If he had bothered to research the company at all, he would have discovered my connection to it immediately. Devin started with a standard question: "Can you tell us about your experience managing complex technical projects?" Marcus launched into a well-rehearsed response about a marketing campaign he had spearheaded at his current company. "I coordinated between multiple departments, managed a substantial budget, and delivered results that exceeded expectations," he concluded, leaning back slightly as if expecting applause. "And what project management methodologies did you employ?" Devin pressed. Marcus hesitated. "I believe in a flexible approach that adapts to the specific needs of each project," he said vaguely. "I don't like to be constrained by rigid methodologies." Sophie jumped in. "Could you walk us through how you would set up a Kanban board for a software development project?" Marcus's confidence faltered visibly. "Well, I would delegate that to the technical team members," he replied. "My strength is in the big-picture strategy, not the day-to-day technical details." The interview continued in this vein, with Marcus attempting to deflect technical questions and emphasize his strategic vision and interpersonal skills. When cornered about his technical knowledge, he became dismissive. "Let's be honest," he said with a chuckle that contained a hint of condescension. "People like me aren't hired for coding skills. We're hired because we know how to lead, how to inspire, and how to connect with the right people. I have contacts at major corporations who could become valuable clients for TechVision." Alicia, who had been quiet, spoke up. "Our senior project managers are expected to have both technical proficiency and leadership skills. They need to understand our products deeply to manage their development effectively." Marcus waved his hand dismissively. "That's what technical assistants are for." In my experience, the most successful projects are led by people who understand business, not just technology. No offense, but self-made people without proper backgrounds often miss the bigger picture because they're too focused on technical details. I saw Jasmine's eyebrows rise slightly at the comment. Everyone in the room knew that Techvision had been built from the ground up by self-made people, myself included. Tell us about a time when you faced a significant challenge on a project and how you overcame it, Devin asked, his tone professionally neutral despite the tension in the room. Marcus launched into a story about salvaging a marketing campaign after a vendor failed to deliver. I worked through the weekend, making hundreds of calls to find a replacement vendor at the last minute, he claimed. My boss was amazed that I managed to save the campaign single-handedly. I pressed my lips together to keep from reacting. I knew the story. It had happened at his previous job, but Marcus hadn't saved the campaign. His assistant had worked the weekend while Marcus took credit for her efforts. I knew because the assistant had later applied for a position at Techvision and had shared the real story during her interview. As the technical questions continued, Marcus grew increasingly uncomfortable. He checked his watch several times and began to look irritated. I think we're getting too caught up in the technical weeds, he said. As I mentioned, my value lies in my strategic vision and connections. I'm being considered for several senior positions at other companies, so I'd appreciate it if we could focus on how my unique skills would benefit Techvision. Jasmine exchanged glances with the panel members, then nodded slightly. We're actually nearing the end of our scheduled time, she said. Before we wrap up, our CEO, who will make the final decision on all senior hires, would like to ask you a few questions. Marcus straightened, suddenly alert. Meeting the CEO hadn't been mentioned in the interview schedule. Of course, he said, adjusting his tie again. I look forward to it. Jasmine turned toward the observer section. Rebecca, would you like to take over? I stood and walked to the front of the room, watching as recognition slowly dawned on Marcus's face. His expression transformed from confident to confused, then shocked, and finally horrified. Hello, Marcus, I said calmly, extending my hand. It's been a while. His mouth opened and closed without sound, his hand automatically rising to shake mine. His palm was clammy against my skin. You're the CEO, he finally managed, his voice barely above a whisper. Rebecca Victoria Mitchell, founder and CEO of Techvision Solutions, I confirmed, taking the seat directly across from him. I recused myself from the initial screening process for obvious reasons, but I do make the final decisions on all senior hires. The color had drained from Marcus's face. His eyes darted around the room as if looking for an escape, but he was trapped in this moment of truth. I have a few questions, I continued professionally, opening his resume folder. I notice you've listed your current position as Executive Marketing Strategist, but when I contacted Hamilton Partners last week about a potential collaboration, Craig Hamilton mentioned you were a marketing associate. Can you explain the discrepancy? Marcus's eyes widened at the mention of his boss. I handle executive-level projects, he stammered. It's a functional title rather than an official one. I nodded, making a note. And you claim proficiency in Python and Java on your resume. Could you briefly explain how you would use either language to create an API integration? I oversee teams that handle that sort of thing, he said, tugging at his collar. As I mentioned, I focus on strategy, not coding. I see, I said, closing the folder. One last question. You mentioned having connections that could bring valuable clients to Techvision. Could you be more specific about those relationships and how they've translated to business results in your current role? Marcus shifted uncomfortably. Well, Kimberly's father, that is, my girlfriend's father, he's a partner at a major consulting firm, and my father knows several business owners in Pittsburgh who might. His voice trailed off as he realized how weak this sounded. The connections he was so proud of were secondhand at best, leveraging relationships that weren't even his own. Thank you for your time today, Marcus, I said, standing to signal the end of the interview. Our HR team will be in touch regarding next steps. I extended my hand again, maintaining absolute professionalism despite the turmoil of emotions beneath the surface. Marcus shook it weakly, still appearing shell-shocked. Thank you, he mumbled, gathering his portfolio with trembling hands. Jasmine stepped forward to escort him out. As they reached the door, Marcus looked back at me, A mixture of confusion, embarrassment, and something else, perhaps a dawning realization in his eyes. Then he was gone, and the room fell silent. Devin let out a low whistle. "Well, that was unexpected," he said. "I take it you two know each other." "He's my brother," I replied simply, gathering my notes. "Which is why I wasn't involved in the initial screening process. Please evaluate his application according to our standard criteria, without considering our relationship." The team nodded, though I could see the questions in their eyes. I excused myself and returned to my office, closing the door behind me. Only then did I allow myself to process what had just happened. I hadn't planned to embarrass Marcus, but I also hadn't protected him from the consequences of his own hubris and lack of preparation. For once, he had been judged solely on his own merits, without our parents' influence tipping the scales in his favor. I felt no satisfaction in his discomfort, only a strange sense of closure. For years, I had worked in the shadows of my family's dismissal, building something they never bothered to acknowledge. Now, at least Marcus knew the truth. Whether that would change anything remained to be seen. I had just finished gathering my thoughts when my office phone rang. It was Jasmine at the reception desk. "Rebecca," she said, her voice tense, "your brother is still in the building. He's demanding to speak with you, and he's on the phone with someone. I think it might be your father." I closed my eyes briefly. Of course, this wasn't over with Marcus. It never was. "Send him in," I said. "And Jasmine, thank you for handling the situation so professionally." "Of course," she replied. "That's what we do here. Handle things professionally." The subtle emphasis on her last words made me smile despite the impending confrontation. Whatever happened next, I had built a team of people who valued competence and integrity. That alone was worth celebrating. I had barely composed myself when Marcus burst into my office without knocking, his face flushed with a mixture of embarrassment and anger. "What the hell was that?" he demanded, closing the door behind him with more force than necessary. I remained seated, keeping my voice calm and professional. "That was a job interview, Marcus, for a position you applied for." "You made me look like a fool," he exclaimed, pacing in front of my desk. "You ambushed me." "I did nothing of the sort," I replied evenly. "You applied to my company without doing even basic research. If you had, you would have known I was the CEO. Your lack of preparation isn't my responsibility." He stopped pacing to stare at me incredulously. "How was I supposed to know? You never talk about your work." "I've tried to talk about my work for years," I pointed out. "No one in our family has ever been interested. But a simple Google search of Techvision Solutions CEO would have shown you my name and picture." Marcus ran a hand through his hair, a gesture reminiscent of our father when he was frustrated. "This is just like you, Rebecca. Always trying to one-up me, always trying to make me look bad." I took a deep breath, reminding myself to stay calm. "Marcus, I recused myself from the initial screening process precisely to avoid any conflict of interest. The fact that you made it to the interview stage was based solely on the hiring team's evaluation. I only participated at the end, as I do with all senior position interviews." "But you asked me those impossible technical questions," he protested. "You knew I couldn't answer them." "Those were standard questions for the position you applied for," I explained patiently. "Every candidate is asked to demonstrate their technical knowledge and experience. That's why the job description clearly states the required skills and experience." Marcus collapsed into a chair across from my desk, his initial anger giving way to a sullen defensiveness. "Dad's furious," he muttered. "He's on his way here." I felt a cold weight settle in my stomach. Asterisk, Dad is coming here? "To my office, asterisk, I called him right after the interview," Marcus admitted, not meeting my eyes. "He and Mom are both coming." They were already in Seattle, visiting Kimberly's parents. Of course they were. My parents had never visited me in Seattle despite numerous invitations over the years, but they would travel across the country to meet their son's girlfriend's family. "Marcus," I said carefully, "this is my workplace. Whatever family issues we have should be discussed privately, not in my professional environment." He shrugged, a gesture that conveyed both helplessness and a lack of concern for my boundaries. "Too late. They're probably already in the building." As if on cue, my phone rang. It was the reception desk again. Miss Mitchell, your parents are here, requesting to see you. Should I send them up? I closed my eyes briefly, centering myself. Yes, please escort them to my office. And could you ask Jasmine and Tiffany to join us in about 10 minutes? Having witnesses would hopefully keep the situation from escalating too far. While we waited, Marcus's phone chimed with a text message. He checked it, and a smug expression crossed his face. Kimberly's father might be interested in investing in your little company, he said. That's what connections can do for you. Before I could respond, the door opened and my parents entered my office. My father, Walter, strode in first, his face set in the stern expression I remembered from childhood scoldings. My mother, Diana, followed, her eyes darting around the spacious corner office with evident surprise. Rebecca, my father began without preamble. What is the meaning of this? You humiliated your brother in a job interview. Is this some kind of revenge? I stood, maintaining my professional composure. Hello, Dad, Mom. Please have a seat. This doesn't need to be confrontational. Don't tell me how this needs to be, my father snapped, remaining standing. Marcus tells us you ambushed him, asked him impossible questions, made him look incompetent. I did nothing of the sort, I replied calmly. Marcus applied for a senior position at my company without realizing I was the CEO. The questions he was asked are standard for all candidates applying for that role. My mother, who had taken a seat beside Marcus, spoke up. Your company? You're the CEO here. She looked around the office again, taking in the awards on the wall, the view of the Seattle skyline, the clear trappings of success. Yes, Mom. I founded Techision Solutions 6 years ago. I'm the CEO and majority shareholder. I couldn't keep a hint of pride from my voice. My father waved this away impatiently. That's not the point. The point is, Marcus needs this job, and you're in a position to help him. That's what family does. The position Marcus applied for requires technical skills and experience he doesn't have, I explained. It wouldn't be fair to other candidates or to the company to hire someone unqualified because of family connections. So you're refusing to help your brother? My father demanded, his voice rising. After all we've done for you? Something inside me snapped at those words. All you've done for me? I repeated, my voice dangerously quiet. And what exactly would that be, Dad? My father looked taken aback by my tone. We raised you. Educated you. No, I interrupted, surprising everyone in the room, including myself. You raised me, but you didn't educate me. I worked 3 jobs to put myself through college while you paid for Marcus's private university. You've never supported my career, never shown interest in my achievements. And most recently, you banned me from Christmas because you thought I might embarrass you in front of Marcus's girlfriend. My mother gasped. That's not what happened. It's exactly what happened. I said firmly. Dad called me a week before Christmas and told me not to come because Marcus was bringing Kimberly and you needed to show her family that you were respectable. Those were his exact words. Marcus looked uncomfortably between our parents. I didn't know about that, he said quietly. Of course you didn't, I replied. You were too busy sending me photos of the Christmas celebration I was excluded from. My father's face had turned red. This is ridiculous. We're getting off topic. The issue here is the job. No. Dad, I interrupted again. The issue here is much bigger than a job. The issue is that for my entire life, I've been treated as less important, less valuable than Marcus. I've worked incredibly hard to build this company, to create something meaningful, and not once have any of you shown genuine interest or pride in what I've accomplished. A knock at the door interrupted the tense silence that followed. Jasmine and Tiffany entered, both wearing professionally neutral expressions. You asked us to join you, Rebecca? Jasmine said. Yes, thank you, I replied, grateful for their presence. Mom, Dad, this is Jasmine Henderson, our HR director, and Tiffany Morris, my executive assistant. They're here to help clarify our hiring processes. My father glared at the newcomers. This is a family matter. Actually, I said firmly, this began as a professional matter. Marcus applied for a job at my company. The fact that we're related doesn't change our hiring standards or procedures. Jasmine stepped forward. Mr. Mitchell, our hiring process is rigorous and fair. Every candidate is evaluated based on the same criteria. The senior project manager position requires specific technical skills and experience that were clearly outlined in the job description. My father turned back to me. You're the CEO. You can make an exception. I acknowledged, but I won't. My company's success depends on having the right people in the right positions. Marcus isn't qualified for a senior role. So that's it, my father demanded. You're turning your back on your family. No, I said, my voice steady. I'm maintaining the professional integrity of the company I built. However, I added, looking at Marcus, we do have entry-level positions in the marketing department that might be appropriate. You would need to start at the bottom and work your way up, learning the necessary skills along the way. But there would be opportunities for growth. Marcus looked offended. Entry-level? I have 5 years of experience in marketing. Yes, I agreed. But not in technical project management. In our company, those are different career tracks. This is ridiculous, my father snapped. You're punishing your brother because of your own insecurities. Always trying to prove you're better than everyone else. I felt a flash of anger, but kept my voice controlled. Dad, I've built a $200 million company from nothing. I employ over 200 people. I don't need to prove anything to anyone. What I'm trying to do is run a successful business based on merit and hard work, not nepotism. My mother, who had been unusually quiet, finally spoke up. Rebecca, after all these years, can you put aside your resentment and help your brother? Family should come first. That's a convenient principle to invoke now, I replied. Where was family first when you excluded me from Christmas? Or when you refused to help with my college education? Or when you dismissed my career as a phase for years? My mother had the grace to look uncomfortable. Things weren't always perfect, but they still aren't, I interrupted gently. But I'm not refusing to help Marcus. I'm offering him a legitimate opportunity to join the company at an appropriate level and learn the business properly. That's more help than I ever received. My father shook his head in disgust. This is pointless. Come on, Diana, Marcus. We're leaving. Your sister has made her choice. Marcus stood, straightening his suit jacket with a jerky motion. I wouldn't work for you anyway, he said, his voice thick with wounded pride. I have other opportunities. As they turned to leave, I called after them. The offer stands, Marcus. If you change your mind, call Jasmine directly. My father ushered my mother and brother toward the door, but as they reached it, my mother hesitated. She turned back to look at me, really look at me, perhaps for the first time in years. Her expression was complicated, a mixture of confusion, resentment, and something else. Recognition, perhaps. Your office is lovely, she said quietly. You've done well for yourself. It wasn't an apology or even a congratulation, but it was something. An acknowledgement, however small, of the life I had built. After they left, Jasmine and Tiffany remained, both looking concerned. Are you okay? Tiffany asked. I took a deep breath and nodded. Yes, actually. For the first time in a long time, I think I am. Because standing my ground, speaking my truth, and refusing to diminish myself to make others comfortable felt like freedom. It felt like finally becoming who I was always meant to be. 2 weeks passed without any contact from my family. I threw myself into work, finalizing our European expansion plans and overseeing the move to our new, larger office space. The confrontation with my parents and Marcus had been painful, but it had also been clarifying. For the first time, I had spoken my truth without apologizing for my success or minimizing my achievements to make others comfortable. It was Sunday afternoon, and I was enjoying a rare day off, curled up on my sofa with a book and a cup of tea, when my phone rang. It was the security desk from my apartment building. Miss Mitchell, your parents are here, requesting to see you. Should I send them up? I sat up straight, surprised. My parents had never visited my apartment before. After a moment's hesitation, I agreed to let them up. When I opened the door, I was struck by how much older my parents looked compared to 2 weeks ago. My father's shoulders were slightly stooped, and my mother's smile was tentative, unsure. Rebecca, my mother said softly, thank you for seeing us. We should have called first, but we weren't sure you'd agree to meet. Come in, I replied, stepping aside to let them enter. They walked into my living room, taking in the modern furnishings, the floor-to-ceiling windows with views of the city, the tasteful art on the walls. I noticed my mother's eyes searching for family photos and finding none. "Can I get you any water, tea, coffee?" I offered, falling back on politeness to navigate the awkwardness. "No, thank you," my father answered. He seemed subdued compared to his anger in my office. "We won't stay long." We sat down, my parents on the sofa and me in an armchair across from them. For a moment, no one spoke. "Marcus lost his job," my father finally said, getting straight to the point. "The day after we saw you, his boss found out he'd been interviewing elsewhere and let him go." I nodded, not surprised. Craig Hamilton was known for his lack of tolerance for disloyalty. "He's been applying for other positions, but nothing has come through yet," my mother added. "And Kimberly, she broke up with him last week. Said she needed to focus on her career." I felt a twinge of sympathy for my brother. Despite everything, losing a job and a relationship in the same week was a difficult blow for anyone. "I'm sorry to hear that," I said sincerely. "Is he okay?" My parents exchanged glances. "He's staying with us for now," my mother said. "He's struggling." I waited, sensing there was more they wanted to say. My father cleared his throat. "Rebecca, about what happened at your office, and at Christmas." He paused, clearly finding it difficult to continue. "What your father is trying to say," my mother interjected, "is that we've been doing some thinking. And some realizing." "Realizing what?" I asked, keeping my voice neutral. "That we've been unfair to you," my mother admitted. "For a long time, we didn't want to see how hard you've worked, what you've accomplished. We were wrong to exclude you from Christmas." It was cruel," my father added gruffly. The admission surprised me. I couldn't remember ever hearing my father acknowledge he was wrong about anything. "Why are you telling me this now?" I asked. "Is it because you want me to give Marcus a job?" My father's face flushed. "Partly," he admitted with unexpected honesty. "But also because, seeing your office, your company, it made us realize we don't really know you, Rebecca. We've been so focused on Marcus, on what we wanted for him, that we never really saw what you were building. And we should have. We should have been proud of you," my mother added softly. "We should have supported you." I felt a complicated mix of emotions: validation, lingering hurt, cautious hope. "It's not too late," I said finally, "to get to know each other. But it has to be different. I won't diminish myself or my achievements to make anyone else comfortable. Not anymore." My father nodded slowly. "We understand that now. At least, we're trying to." "About Marcus," my mother began tentatively. "The offer I made still stands," I said. "He can apply for an entry-level position in our marketing department. He'll have to earn any promotions based on his performance, just like everyone else. But I'll make sure he gets fair consideration." "That's more than fair," my father acknowledged. "I'll talk to him." We sat in silence for a moment, then my mother asked, "How did you do it, Rebecca? Build all this on your own?" For the first time in my adult life, my mother was asking about my work with genuine interest. I began to tell her about the early days of TechVision, the challenges and breakthroughs, the long nights and small victories that had led to where I was now. As I spoke, I saw something new in my parents' expressions, not just recognition, but a dawning respect. They were finally seeing me, not as their daughter who needed to stay in her place, but as a successful woman who had created something significant through her own efforts. When they left an hour later, nothing had been completely resolved. Years of dismissal and favoritism couldn't be erased in a single conversation. But a door had been opened, a possibility created for a different kind of relationship moving forward. The following week, Marcus called Jasmine to inquire about the entry-level marketing position. He sounded subdued, humbled by recent events. Jasmine put him through the standard application process, and he was interviewed by the marketing team without any special treatment. To my surprise, he accepted the position when it was offered, despite the significant pay cut from his previous job. On his first day, he stopped by my office, looking nervous but determined. "I want to do this right," he said. "Learn the business properly. Earn my place. That's all anyone is asking," I replied. "And Rebecca," he added, "I'm sorry. About Christmas. About a lot of things." I nodded, accepting his apology without making it too easy. Show me with actions, not words, Marcus. That's how trust is rebuilt. As spring turned to summer, small changes began to take place. My mother called regularly, asking about my work with genuine interest. My father was slower to change, but he made efforts in his own way, sending me articles about the tech industry or asking questions about TechVision's expansion plans. Marcus surprised everyone by taking his new position seriously, arriving early, staying late, and soaking up knowledge from his colleagues. He still had moments of entitlement, still occasionally expected special treatment, but he was learning, growing. In July, I received another invitation, this time to my parents' anniversary dinner. There was no mention of who would or wouldn't be welcome. No conditions attached. Just a simple invitation to celebrate with family. As I confirmed my attendance, I reflected on the journey of the past 6 months. The painful Christmas exclusion had been a catalyst for change, forcing long-buried issues into the open. The confrontation in my office had been uncomfortable but necessary, creating space for honesty after years of polite fiction. We were not a perfect family, and we never would be. There was too much history, too many ingrained patterns to overcome completely. But we were finding a new way forward, based on truth, respect, and the recognition that family relationships, like anything valuable, require work and commitment from all sides. Standing up for myself hadn't destroyed my family, as I had feared for so many years. Instead, it had created the possibility for something more authentic to emerge from the ashes of old expectations and assumptions. Something that might, with time and effort, become stronger and more meaningful than what had come before. And for now, that possibility was enough.